Hello, this is Nathan, better known as CrazyhermitDM, and this is my podcast, The Hermit's Homebrew. Joining me today is Brent from Langeministudio as we talk about Dungeons & Dragons and tabletop gaming. Shifting gears, and I wouldn't mind your opinion on this, using curated playlists, special effects, music, and fast-paced drums or anything like that, do you think us playing music like on the TV, as long as it's at a reasonable volume, because occasionally those videos shift volume, do you think that kind of adds to...
I believe it does.
Okay.
Yes, my chair happens to be right next to the TV.
That's why I have to...
So it's right in my ear. But I believe it does, even on just a subconscious level. You may not be actively listening to it, but you're still hearing it.
Because there's multiple times where like you've watched a lot, where I started learning that from live plays, like, you know, the Dimension 20, the Critical Roles and all that, of like having that ambient noise in the background.
Yeah.
I really actually, because I've played The Witcher 3, I haven't played any of the other ones, but I really actively fell in love with that soundtrack.
Oh yeah, they did
when they did it on Critical Role, and I'm like, man, like it's good, and it was always good on Witcher 3, but you really appreciate it on Critical Role.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's one of the things that I think I need to work on, because whenever I DM, I don't do that. Mainly because, one, I haven't gotten that habit and I don't think about it.
I think with our Fallout games, it's definitely kind of added a little bit when we were playing at like Josh's house, and he just
and he
put on the Fallout Live play radio on.
Yeah, 24-hour Fallout, all the playlists, the Fallout games. Yeah, that I think it's added to it. Yeah, absolutely. So that's just something I got.
Because it's just like you're walking on with your Pit Boy with the radio on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, I definitely need to work on that, get some playlists going. I need to up my game a little bit.
And then just to kind of plug them and give them a shout out, for anyone, Monument Studios just had a massive Kickstarter, and they kind of helped. For anyone listening, that was just my dog snorting. Apparently, she's not a Monument Studios.
Are you a Monument Studios fan?
She's not a Monument Studios fan, but I am for sure. They kind of like helped support the podcast, and we supported them during their Kickstarter, so they support us by letting us have a subscription to their thing for a little while.
Yeah. Shout out to Monument Studios. You guys are awesome.
The other thing, and I already called this out earlier, is like the slow-mo moments. Like the call for a pause when something dramatic happens, like a natural 20, the final blow, the player's critical failure. The thing I've done once, and I really recommend you use this very, very sparingly, and it only really, really works in very low levels, like level 1 to 3s, when they don't have enchanted things, is breaking weapons.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because if you are in a dungeon crawl, and we'll use Merrick for an example, he's level 2, he has a normal longsword, and you break it. Stereotypically, a paladin don't carry too many other weapons on them. Stereotypically.
Yeah.
If you're only a third of the way through the dungeon and you break that sword, unless you know there's going to be as a dungeon master, something else coming, you've really detached your player from the situation, because he don't have a weapon now. I mean, I guess it'd be technically an improvised weapon with a shattered sword, so it'd be doing a D4, but...
I would say it'd be like a dagger.
Yeah.
It would go from a long sword to a dagger, or either a long sword to a short sword, a short sword to a dagger, whatever. But yeah.
And then you add some sort of property on it to where if it... basically almost like if you're playing Gunslinger, a misfire ability, if it's between this and that on the dice, then it shatters more because you're using a broken weapon.
Yeah.
Actually, that's not a bad idea. I might write that down. That's not a bad idea. Yeah. But those are the type of kind of slow moments that you kind of really want to focus, on a player's thing, is like when they're critically succeeding, critically failing, or just something big's happening. We did that with our big final fight and then Rama, like 11 from Stranger Things, flies up to in front of this big monster's face and just Eldritch blasts it right in the face and just takes its head off. But I guess for any of our listeners, like, how would you use like combat cinema in yours. This is a little bit more of an interactive episode than what we're doing. Mm-hmm. We're used to doing. I want to get people's opinions. I want to get more engagement. I actually want to ask you guys what you guys think.
Because talking about that, so cinematic moments. One of the, like, if anyone has listened to the previous episodes where we talk about this, there's a really big cinematic moment in Lord of the Rings, the Battle of Helm's Deep, to where the orc is running up and he's got the big ass torch to go blow up the wall. And Legolas, who has been freaking spot on, like riding a shield down the stairs and is pegging orcs in the eye, and all of a sudden he can't kill this guy. He like hits him in the thigh, he hits him in the shoulder. I'm like, he's not even wearing a chest plate. Hit him in the heart, kill this guy. He does like 3 shots. I'm like, that was so out of character. I mean, I get that they wanted to have this big cinematic moment. They wanted to blow the wall up because that's how the story goes, and they wanted to do all this. I get it. It seemed like it could have been written better.
Yeah.
And so make sure that your cinematic moments make sense. And how you do that is, 1, by knowing your characters. 2, know the setup that you've made. And then 3 is just experience.
And there's going to be times, same as being a storyteller or a writer or any sort of stuff, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah.
And there's going to be sessions down the line where it's like, that didn't really make sense, but it happened.
Mm-hmm.
You can't take it back. It's not like you're writing a book. You can't go rewrite the chapter and then,
And yeah, I guess you could retcon it, but don't worry about it. Just roll with it.
Yeah. There's lots of things that happen in real life that's like, that's really out of character.
Did that just happen? Yeah, I guess it did. Huh. And then you just kind of got to adapt and move on.
And that kind of plays into what I brought up when we're kind of talking through this, is just like pacing and player engagement.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in today's like day and age where attention spans are a lot shorter.
Yeah, that fast pace. What's the next thing? Yeah.
Keeping combat exciting, especially if we all play with a little bit of an older crowd, so we're still have a little bit of a longer attention span, but even our group suffers from it every now and then.
Oh yeah.
Even me as a DM.
No, same here. Yeah. I fall victim to it. Yeah, absolutely.
Keeping combat exciting is and can be difficult. It is more of an advanced game mastering thing. Mm-hmm. If you're just starting out, do not expect to be somebody that you see on a live play.
No.
Those people are the equivalent of like a level 15 to 20. Matt Mercer, in my opinion, he'd maybe not be a level 20 showman or whatever. He's a 4th tier. For the people that are coming in at level 1, if we're keeping in game terms to make an accurate comparison, you are not going to be those people.
Yeah, and you don't need to be.
It's a road to get to that point.
Yeah. And he's got years of experience.
Mercer's been playing since the 90s.
Yeah, and plus he's got his voice acting, to pull on. So he's got the experience of the gaming. He's got the experience of his voice acting that helps him improvise and helps him do all of this.
Because anyone that kind of knows the history of that, because I like delving into the history of things. Him and Liam had been playing together since the late 90s, if not mid 90s. Mm-hmm. And that's how they were friends. They played 3rd edition together, and I think Mercer's played even since late 2nd edition.
Oh,
since a kid.
Oh, okay. Wow, I didn't know he had second edition cred. Okay, cool.
They called him out on the middle of one video. It's like, how do you do Thalco? And he called it off the top of his head.
Oh, wow. Okay, so, all right. If he still knows Thalco, then all right, cool.
Yeah.
Thalco sucks.
Sometimes shorter turns make a bigger impact. Encourage concise decision-making to avoid analysis paralysis. And I suffer from this one. I have 16 years of experience of like setting up my players to avoid that. The biggest tool or like little cheat that I can offer any game master or player is when you're going through the initiative order, when it's one person's turn, you say, hey, you're next.
Yeah. Baseball rules. Baseball rules for batters. You're batting, you're on deck.
Yeah. Yep. You're up next. So that tells them. And if they're not doing it, that's on them.
Yeah, exactly.
And eventually, maybe you have to push them or tease them a little bit. Playfully tease, not mean.
Yeah, of course.
But,
they're still your friends. Yeah.
Yeah. to get them in that habit of, hey, check your stuff.
Yeah.
Get your turn ready because we don't want to spend 2 hours on a round of combat.
Yeah. A story you told me was that it got kind of bad for one of the things you were doing, that you ended up having a sand timer.
Mm-hmm.
To where it's like, okay, it's your turn, go. And then you turn the sand timer over, and if it ran out, okay, your character is confused or doesn't know what they're doing. You spend your turn freaking out doing nothing.
It was
next.
Very combat heavy 4th edition. We had to get people...
let's get moving here, yeah.
Yeah, we don't want to spend an entire session on one combat.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I try not do that unless it's a big boss fight. You know, in 6 seconds, what is the most impactful thing can your character do?
Yeah, exactly.
And realize, on average, depending upon the edition, most of the newer editions, they say a turn is 6 seconds. In older editions, they say it's like 6 to 12. But
yeah, I think in 2nd edition, I want to say it was 10. But
yeah,
I could be wrong on
it was
that
6 to 10 to 12. I've heard all three.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Depending upon what. And then spotlight rotation kind of like ensures the quicker, less assertive players still have their moments to shine. You use the prompts. What is your bard doing while the paladin fights?
Mm-hmm.
The rogue notices something in the shadows. What do you do? Merrick is off fighting this. Tove, I know with your insane eagle eye passive perception, you see that this thing is glowing off in the corner.
Yeah.
As you see this, Rama, you see Flint off in the corner and he's fumbling through his bag to get this ready. That's telling you he's getting ready to do something on his turn.
Yeah, and plus you can use like little prompts like that to kind of, I don't want to say tell them what to do, but give them hints, especially if they do get that analysis paralysis. You can use these prompts to kind of break that.
Yeah.
To where, hey, you see this happening and you see this happening, to where it kind of narrows down what, they can do.
Let's say you're using like a lightning lindworm snake creature or whatever, and that lightning charged breath really, really screws up the players because they weren't expecting it, and
they all failed their deck saves.
And it takes them down. That second time around, when it recharges, and it's like the next turn that it happens, or whatever time you use it, you could say you're starting to see its throat light up segment by segment, signaling it's getting ready to use it again. Yep. So they know what to do on their next turns, whether they want to continue being offensive or continue being defensive, and that ratchets up combat right there. It's like, oh, it's getting ready to do this, just like in a video game. Like a lot of cues from video games, because video games and tabletop games kind of came out at the same time and kind of grown up parallel to each other,
especially with newer players. To where, like you and I growing up, we didn't have a whole lot of like the level of video games that we have today, which are freaking amazing.
Yes.
To where a lot of the younger generation, though, the newer generation coming in, grew up with these 4th and 5th generation consoles or computers, to where they have all this amazing stuff. To where, yeah, it kind of, it's definitely a shift in the mindset. And so yeah, you're making some good points there. One of the things that I wish was more of a thing was the idea of healing in combat, because Chase brought it up a couple of times about action economy, that sometimes the action economy is better if you don't heal, and it's best just to let a character go down to 0 hit points, because you don't want waste another character's turn healing them. And so I kind of get where he's coming from, but I don't like it. I like the all character options and all character builds being valid. Yeah. So you have that cleric to be like, okay, well, I have all these awesome healing spells, but action economy in combat states it's not good to do that. No, but it does. Like you said, you have that big lightning blast out, and if the cleric sees it coming, okay, who here is the worst? Maybe pop off one of those higher level heals.
Either that or you're going to be wasting your entire action economy on the next round to break everyone up, or they're going to heal themselves.
Now you've got to worry about a revivify or something later on, which could be a drain on resources. Like, I kind of want...
There's different situations.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
A stereotypical point of view, he brings up a valid point.
He does. Yeah. No, absolutely he does. Because is it better to destroy the sources of damage rather than weather them?
Yeah.
And again, it's just two schools of
thought. There's a manual from 4th edition called the Player Strategy Guide.
Okay.
And it kind of tells you as a group kind of how to kind of up your tactics a little bit. And it shows in a diagram on that. And I remember this. I wish I still had that book. Unfortunately, I lost it with technically the divorce of my first group. But it showed you the point of focusing fire instead of spreading it.
I agree with focus fire, yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. You put all the damage on one thing, you take it down and around, now you don't got to worry about it again. Unless the DM knows what he's doing and has a cleric in the party that you're fighting. And all of a sudden, that thing gets healed and comes back up. That's advanced tactics. Watch out with that.
Yeah. But like I mentioned, the throat blast thing.
Yeah.
Consequences of mid-fight. We mentioned bloodied before, like introducing those stakes to keep the players on their toes. Bridge starts crumbling, bloodied effects start coming, and an injured NPC starts begging for help mid-combat. A certain hobgoblin wild mage starts getting carried off by a pack of spider in our campaign.
Sucks to be you.
No one cared at that.
No one cared. Oh my gosh. Especially the guy that he was supposedly teaching.
I think that was before the podcast started, so we haven't had a chance to talk about it. But the group got to moose. And make sure if you're doing this with NPCs, caveat before I really start the story, make sure it's an NPC they actually want to help.
Yeah, yeah.
I've kind of, for lack of a, how do I word this? So, I'm trying to think how to word this story. So the group gets to Muspelheim. Mm-hmm. They've run into this kind of wizards, mages, spellcasters council. And in my mind just because I'm a little bit anti-authoritarian and all that in my real life, or we won't get into it too much about real life stuff. But I basically wanted to put that these people are actually very powerful and they are competent, but they are incompetent idiots at the same time. They're incompetently capable. That is probably
I like that.
That is probably the best thing to describe the High Council of the Mages. They are incompetently capable.
I like that. Because they're some of the most powerful arcane practitioners in Midgard, yet they constantly drop the ball. Oh my god.
And the reason why I do that is because as a game master, I believe heavily in you can introduce every so often an NPC to do it. You should not constantly introduce NPCs or villains. Oh, you can do villains for sure, but NPCs or allies or anything that should outshine your group.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Every once in a while do it so that they can see that, there's other people out there that are just as powerful as us.
Without even showing him in combat, I believe personality-wise, Chernobog showed that.
Yeah.
That he was very capable. He was very knowing what I ain't doing that.
You're like, no. Screw you. Yeah.
He knew it. He knew, like, Xingxi, for instance, we were talking before we started recording about that. That is a very capable NPC, very viable threat villain. And he knew what he wanted. It was black and white and cut clear.
Yeah, and you can do that without having the people fight, because you can also use other NPCs' reactions to that person. To where if they're giving them a wide berth, if they're kind of giving them the side eye, like, hey, don't piss that guy off, don't go near that guy, whatever, have the other NPCs react to that person to show, oh, I need to be wary of this. Or that, if you have that one player that, oh, everyone's afraid of him, I'm going to go poke the bear. Well, okay, here's a good time okay, fine, I guess I got to flex a little bit. But you don't have to. Hopefully your players kind of play along.
The funnest thing, and we've talked about it on the podcast before, about on a previous episode of the Hallway of the Undead. And I actively, and Chase especially, he's probably the biggest advocate for this, is have villains that reveal surprise abilities or abilities that break the rules.
I like breaking expectations, yeah.
The Banshee Undead High Priestess, she had basically Misty Step, but it was like a phase step, and I had it written on like my little notes of she teleports, and then she reappears three people's spaces later in the initiative order.
Oh yeah, I remember that. That was so annoying.
Yeah. I think I actually originally was going to do it like 1d6 or 1d4 people later. That would even add more.
Oh, some more randomness to it.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other thing about keeping combat kind of like short and sweet is, and I just learned this today, it's the Chris Perkins rule about using static damage. Is you can take static damage minus 3 off the static damage and add a d6.
Oh, okay.
Your players will never, it will always be that kind of thing, and you're always rolling a dice, but you're always using the static damage, and the players, if they're really bought into the story, they are not going to notice a variable of 6 damage. They're just thinking that you're rolling consistent damage.
Yeah, you're rolling damage, not just what you're coming up with. Okay.
Which I've never used. I've been using static damage for some of the heavier. For some of when there's like 8 people out on the thing, it's like, no, static
we
damage.
Need to move it along. We're not going to roll just it hits, it does this much damage.
It's going to hit for 13.
Yeah.
Unless it's like a big thematic move, then I'd roll it like a lightning bolt or a fireball or.
Yeah.
I'd have to like ask, it's like, what's the one rule to our listeners what's the one rule at your table that has adopted to keep combat fast and fun? Because we're always like, and you can drop this in me or Brent's inbox on any of our social medias, we're always interested in learning new things.
Oh yeah.
You've played for 2 decades, I've almost played for 2 decades, like we have like 37 years experience between the two of us. When you get to that level, and we are, I do consider us like advanced in our knowledge, but even like I believe there's either a Japanese or Chinese kind of metaphor of like even the most advanced of masters will learn from the earliest of like a recruit or whatever, because even the newest of people will teach you something. And I've learned that. We had a couple people when we went to NukeCon that told us kind of things, and I'm like, I like that.
Yeah, that was really cool getting to talk to people at NukeCon. Yeah, absolutely.
And other like dungeon masters and players, and like that's the reason I like cons. You meet people. Some of like the real life kind of like DM examples to share that I'd say is the classic tavern brawl that you always hear about.
Talking about tavern brawls, my favorite tavern brawl was in the TV show Firefly. It's on Unification Day, and they're at an alliance-friendly bar, and this guy picks a fight with Mel, and there's a tavern brawl, like it's the Independents versus the Imperials. They're fighting and duking it out. They end up throwing people out the window, and one of the things that they kind of like caught me by surprise, when they threw him out the window didn't break. It was a hologram, to where he went through the window and it just kind of, and then went back up to being a window. Like, how did that happen? But yeah, it spills outside, and so then it's 3 of the main characters, and they're facing off against this group. And I laugh, and I love this line, to where Mel gets up and he brings his fist up and he goes, "Oh, there's just an acre of you fellas," because just more people keep coming out of the bar to fight him. And then the ship comes up, and they threaten him, and then it all kind of breaks down. I love that fight scene.
I will admit, I have a lot stronger opinions off microphone than I take a lot more softer stances when we're recording here. But I will argue tooth and nail with people that is one of the top 5 stupidest decisions Fox has ever made.
To cancel Firefly?
Yeah. I'll even say, maybe not the stupidest, because Fox has done a lot of stupid things.
I would say
but it's top 3 even. I'd go top 3.
Top 3. I would agree with you. Top 5, top 3.
But Fox has done a lot of stupid.
They've done a lot of dumb things. Yeah, canceling Firefly was one of the dumbest things I've ever done. Yeah. Oh my God, that was so good. Jesus.
The other thing I've done, and unfortunately, I kind of put this is a good example. You'll learn from your mistakes of what not to do. When I was playing 4th edition, they were fighting an enemy in this dungeon, and they were going to basically roam around. So I basically created the collapsing dungeon that was going to collapse and all that. And they had to do a skill challenge to get out.
Oh, okay.
I feel if like it was more collapsing maybe a little bit earlier, it would have been a little bit more thematic, because it kind of fell flat with that group.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. They didn't seem to care as much. It's the stereotypical collapse and run. Well, I just didn't want him to stick in the dungeon for, I can't remember the exact reason. I just feel like the environmental stakes and pacing was a little off, at least with that group. With a stereotypical group, it might be different, but it was also a different type of group back then.
Oh, okay. All right.
And that's part of being a good dungeon master, or maybe not even a good dungeon master, a knowledgeable dungeon master, and knowing each group's going to be different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
Any bit of advice that you've heard from us right now, it might apply to your group. It might not. Me and Brent have been doing this for a long time. The literal purpose of this podcast is we're just putting down little pearls in a box for you to kind of sift through, and that one's pretty, I use it.
Yeah, and that's kind of the thing is any kind of advice that anyone gives you about, well, anything in life really, is it's not going to work in every situation. No. And that's half the fun, and also half of the drama is when something works, fantastic. When something doesn't work,
you learn from it.
You learn from it, and hopefully you don't carry that burden with you.
No, one of my favorite sayings, since we'll keep making pop culture references, here's from Batman Begins. Ooh. It's the why do we fall? So we can pick ourselves back up. We
can pick ourselves back up. Yeah, exactly. And that's a really good line, is because, you may feel embarrassed or down on yourself because your friends didn't pick up on that reference, or they didn't think something was as cool as you thought it was. It was better in your head than what it was when it came out. That's fine. You can try again next week or whenever your next session is. And as long as you're good friends and they're decent people, they're not going to hold that against you. Because next week it may be them making the stupid decision or the stupid saying or whatever.
The other thing I've done in the past is like the one-on-one showdown. I wrote down on the little thing above this note, I kind of pinned it in the Duel of the Fates, like the Qui-Gon Darth Maul.
Qui-Gon Darth Maul, or Obi-Wan Anakin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That one-on-one showdown between one member of the party as a reoccurring nemesis. It could be Neo versus Agent Smith in the Rain.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We just referenced Star Wars, the Duel of the Fates, which when you find out the actual meaning behind the song title with that, it's actually not the fight. It's Duel of the Fates was the fate of Anakin. It was basically they're basically fighting for Anakin in that point of whether, I think Darth Maul would probably end up taking Anakin, or if Qui-Gon does.
I just had like one of those crazy things, like, what if Maul would have won? What if Maul would have won? Would Anakin have left? Would Maul even have cared? Because
good point. Because I think it would have been in that what if situation of would he have returned Anakin to Sidious?
Yeah. Would he have done it, or would he have even?
Yeah.
Was Anakin even on his radar at that point in time? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, who's this little punk kid? Get out of here. And then, what if Anakin then just grew up there and then didn't become Vader? And, Interesting.
You can use it any number of ways. You could have. I used it in a previous campaign where the group fought a mind flare, and then it plane shifted out with 3 HP left. It pissed my group off. Not only at the mind flare, but at me because I used that ability.
Like, why would you do that to us? Well,
he's fighting for his life. It's literally like if you read the book, the monsters know what they're doing. Yeah, that is an advanced tactic.
Yeah, they fight to the pain, not to the death.
Yes,
to where it's these things don't want to die. So what vested interest do they have sitting there fighting for adventurers that are obviously taking them to church, you know?
But they ended up leaving like a scar on the side of its face because we had a barbarian that cleaved its axe into half of its head.
Nice.
So it had a big scar and like gash. And so later in the campaign, when they're like level 5 at that point, they come back, they're level 10, and they're going through this kind of dungeon and this aberration dungeon, and then they run into that same mind flare.
You
exactly. And it added up.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and so now it kind of ties the characters because now they're running into someone an enemy that they know and they remember. Mm-hmm. It's like, oh no, we're gonna kill you. You are not getting away this time.
There's just so many like things you can do to ratchet up. You can even do it with NPCs. It's another one that I recommend doing very, very sparingly if you do it like a duel in between NPCs. I did it with Walden and Kyle. And I think it was basically two NPCs that were obviously very high power. And the group, thanks to our part-time player who'd come in and kind of shake things up and then go away for about 10 sessions and then come back and then shake things up and then come back. Because that was what he did best, is rattling the cage and then going. He made these two NPCs basically meet up once he found out they were arch enemies.
Like, oh, we're doing this.
Yeah. He's like, I'm out next session anyway, so...
yeah, you guys deal with the aftermath. Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
No, it was really cool how you did that, to where we're trying to do things, but in the background and we're reacting to it, there are these two dudes just duking it out like Superman and Zod, you know, throwing people through buildings and stuff.
Like crash, open a hole through this marble floor, go flying up, crashing down, throw across the room, and it causes a giant crack crater.
Oh yeah.
And they're flying around because they both can fly.
They both can, yeah. That was a really cool fight to kind of like run around where it's like, yeah, we aren't gonna get in the way of that. We just
was the big thing. It's like, do we stay?
Do we stay? Yeah. Do we help? Do we? What? Were we just getting in the way?
I think somebody ended up casting like the daylight spell or something like that and blinding Walden or something like that.
Yeah, I think Vic cast daylight to blind him. Yeah.
Yeah, and
it was either
that was the other thing is Nick's character introduced the two of them in the hallway leading down into the crypts, and you guys had a bunch of refugees and people that were very personally important to the group.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're blocked off in between this fight and they can't go rescue these people. If this thing goes
sideways,
for lack of a better word, nuclear between these two high-powered things, there's no way to rescue these people.
Yeah.
Luckily, it did end up down in the crypts and they ended up killing each other, but, you know, the radiant side of that fight, because it was basically a radiant undead, I called them. They keep teasing him and telling him that he's undead. He's like, no, I'm preserved.
It's like, okay. Yeah. Okay, Pickle Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, I'm not undead.
Because in our setting, there's, I believe, if this dark side has this ability, this necrotic side has this. I imagine there's probably something that's the radiant equivalent to it. Like a radiant undeath of like a preserve or something that's like, my solemn oath is to kill undead. I'm immortal until X happens, like a reverent or
there's in the Eberron setting that exists where there's an elven culture. I think it's pronounced the Aranal elves and they have that to where they are liches, but they are reanimated by positive energy, not negative energy. So yeah, that's totally a thing. Yeah.
But anyone that's kind
of... I
just
like poking fun at him.
Yeah. Anyone that's kind of listening at this point, let us know what you think of like kind of your what's the most epic battle that's ever happened in your thing that maybe wasn't actually a group, it was a group of NPCs.
Yeah.
Or maybe it happened one-on-one between one group or another. Maybe it was literally a cowboy shootout.
Some of those can be really interesting, especially even if it's in a combat to where you have two groups going at it. Sometimes two characters kind of get segmented off and have their own little side battle.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even planned that way. It just, you ended up facing off with this guy while everyone else fought over there. So yeah, it can happen multiple different ways.
Hey, tabletop gamers. Thank you for watching this episode of the Hermit's Homebrew. We come out with new episodes every Wednesday. Remember to like, subscribe, and share with your friends as we continue to level up and grow.